There's almost nothing useful that can be learned from this. Somehow, by some inconceivable thread of fate, Marvel Rivals hero data is even worse than Overwatch's. But it would be incredibly easy to fix it and make it perfect. When I heard that Marvel Rivals hero data was being released to the public directly from them, I was like, wow, that's actually really sick. I wish Overwatch did that. But when I got it, I was severely disappointed. A lot of things are really great about it. Importantly, we have both pick rate and win rate, not just one or the other, which is a mistake I often see in the Overwatch community when either players or the devs talk about the game. I was a bit disappointed to see that the highest rank data available was Grandmaster and above, but we can still work with this if it was the only problem. For those of you who don't realize, Grandmaster in Marvel Rivals is not Grandmaster in Overwatch. It's actually Master. Overwatch's Grandmaster is Marvel Rivals Celestial. Anyone would be able to tell this with a simple glance at the ranked page, and I had originally assumed that everyone would obviously have noticed this, but for whatever reason, the YouTube community is obsessed with getting to Grandmaster in Marvel Rivals. I understand that this parallel between names is probably easier on the mind, making it easier to advertise on YouTube videos, but wouldn't you feel kinda silly seeing an Overwatch YouTube video titled Unranked to Masters? Honestly though, after considering it further, I think the best rebuttal to this would be, it's easier to get Master in Overwatch than it is to get Grandmaster in Marvel Rivals. And you know what? That's true. The reason being is, again, the split queue in Overwatch. Dividing the community makes getting higher on the leaderboard much easier, and the level of competition within the one queue there is in Rivals makes getting this rank admittedly a bigger achievement. It's much more akin to getting Masters in Overwatch 1 before roleq was implemented, but as somebody who played back then, that was honestly not that impressive. I know I'm coming at this from the perspective of a T500 both in old open queue as well as current roleq, but I met many Masters even back then, and let me tell you, they were not the brightest individuals. Wait, I'm bunny trailing a bit. Speaking of bunnies, here's Oink! Please subscribe to the channel and like the video so I can give Oink more treats. I miss her a lot. Thank you so much for the support. Like, really, you guys are the best. Okay, where were we? Oh, hero data. Okay, let's address the way hero data should be read and understood in a game like Rivals or Overwatch. First of all, our goal in looking at hero data is primarily one thing: understanding how good each hero is, and thus understanding the meta. For us to do this accurately, we need to do a few things. Like I alluded to earlier, we need to look at the highest level of play available. While it would be most accurate to have the data solely from One Above All, Rivals' version of Top 500, giving us the data from the ranks above the medal ranks is honestly not half bad. Obviously, we use competitive matches only. I don't think I even need to say that, but just in case. The reason we're looking at the highest level of play for this data is because the highest level of play is getting the most potential out of these characters. Look, there are only two lenses through which you can look at the game: either objectively seeking out the meta, or accepting that individual player skill matters more than metadata. I actually already made an entire video about this, which I'll leave some links to so you can go watch that, but it's basically an entire discussion on this topic along with an immense amount of math I did to find the exact meta of said patch. Given that Overwatch's hero data is broken, and has been ever since private profiles were introduced, I was forced to use professional matches instead of already provided numbers, and it took forever. Essentially, the conclusion came down to the fact that while the meta is an accurate representation of how powerful each hero is, it's less impactful to your matches than the unique skills of each individual player you encounter. So forcing a Mercy one-trick to swap to Ana just because Mercy is terrible and Ana is great right now is a terrible decision if your goal is to win. We, however, still would like to understand the meta, especially if we have a diverse hero pool, so there's no harm in having accurate data. So if we go with the former way of looking at things, focusing on the hard data to understand hero strength and the meta, then the only level of play that matters is where things are optimized, the highest rank. As much as some content creators may try to tell you otherwise, knowing what heroes are good at lower ranks is absolutely meaningless. If you're going to go down that logical route, again, it's immensely less helpful than just accepting that players at these ranks will be better on their own individual hero pool than anything with a high win rate or pick rate at this rank. The literal only way to view things where hero data should ever matter is if you're taking your data from the highest rank. Now, admittedly, a better argument would be to discuss where exactly we decide the line stops. Why not just look at the top 12 players for data rather than top 500? Or maybe having Grandmaster through one above all is too much and Grandmaster shouldn't be considered. But I'm going to make an executive decision here and say it will suffice. I think the general cutoff point that would work best is one above all, given it's technically an entire rank of its own, and would have enough games to have its own data for a season, but so long as we are at least filtering out lower and even average players and matches, things will still be accurate enough. Moving on, we need to discuss the golden rule of hero data. Pick rate and win rate need each other. I absolutely can't stand discussions of Overwatch where someone tries to describe a hero's current power using only either their pick rate or win rate. Win rate and pick rate cannot survive in a vacuum from each other. Let's look at why. A hero like Iron Fist may be really good in the right hands or in the right scenario. I mean, just look at his win rate. But if you try to bring him into every single scenario, you're going to get your ass handed to you more times than not. Here's the reason. Characters with high win rate but not high pick rate are often only played in scenarios that favor them or by specialists who are really good at them. This doesn't mean these heroes are really good. In fact, it means the opposite. On the flip side of this, heroes with massive pick rates often have very middling win rates, which is because they are being used so often such that the win rates tend to middle itself out. That's just how numbers work. And while this doesn't often happen, theoretically if hero had really high pick rate in high-level games, but had absolutely awful win rate, it would indicate that high-level players are wrong about how useful said hero is. See, high-level players may have great mechanics, but their primary skill typically lies in the fact that they understand the game. At the very least, even if there are idiots up there, most high-level players understand the game better than lower-level players, and they use this understanding to win matches they wouldn't be able to with mechanical skill alone. I have the aim of a blind mouse, and I've been the highest rank in Overwatch since the dawn of time. The only reason I thrive in this genre is because I understand it. So, we all have the pieces now, right? All we need to do to understand how powerful heroes are is to take the win rate and pick rate from the highest level of play. I can even do that now, watch. We just multiply the pick rate by the win rate for each hero, and we have an accurate representation of how powerful they are. Problem solved. Or is it? If this were Overwatch, the answer would be, well, no, because we'd have to factor in roleq in some way, but open queue Overwatch, yes. Except this isn't the same as Overwatch's open queue, because we have bans. To some of you this was probably obvious right away, but in case it wasn't, this game's bans make this data almost irrelevant. Look at Hela, for example. Without factoring in bans, she's treated like an average nobody. We have to take bans into account because pretending characters who aren't being picked because they're banned are the same as characters who aren't being picked despite not being banned is absolutely absurd. The most accurate thing to do, once we have this data, would be to recalculate the pick rate by omitting the ban rate. If that sounds confusing, don't worry, it's simpler than you might think. Essentially, you just take the ban rate out of 100%, then you recalculate how often the character is picked relative to how often they were available. After that, bam, you have your actual pick rate, and you can proceed to multiply it by the win rate like usual. In the end, Marvel Rivals hero data comes very close to being really useful, but falls short by one simple omission. I've seen at least some people ask for the inclusion of ban rate, and given they had this data at all, I don't think it would be a stretch to say they may include it next time. Here's hoping they do, because if they do, we'll have an incredibly helpful and accurate look at the meta. And you, watching this video, will have a leg up on most people by understanding exactly how to interpret said data. I want you to remember what we talked about earlier, though. Remember that just because you can see an accurate power level for each hero, doesn't mean you should always be playing these heroes, and especially doesn't mean that you should harass your teammates to play these heroes. While I should hope you already know that, and are a kind person, the selfish reason I'll use to incentivize this is that a player's hero pool is typically a lot more important than hero power and meta. You're going to find a lot more success if you play to your strengths, rather than if you try to chase after whatever the best heroes are. Especially given that the power of heroes will change a lot. Sure, your skills will too, but that's up to you. I believe in you. Thank you so much for watching this. Please do like and subscribe. Join the channel if you want to be a bunny with Oink. I really appreciate the help, and Oink does too. Thank you to Cammy and James for your help. Okie dokie, bye friends!